And what do you think about gay in Ukraine?
It's so hard. Боже, нет, извини. Я не могу разговаривать на английском.
Okay, so in Taiwan, the gay can even get married now. It's a legal thing. And what do you think about the gays in Ukraine? I mean, if two men holding each other's hand on the street, what do you think people will judge or?
Actually, now in Ukraine we can see the tradition changed, and now it's more like usual when two men are together. But there are a lot of guys who think that it's not like inappropriate way. Yeah, sure.
What do you think about enjoying your relationship in Kiev? Are you afraid of people will attack you?
I live in the city of freedom, and I think that Kiev is a very tolerant city, and I hope that step by step we will have less violence against anyone.
Okay, so do you think people like gay in Ukraine?
To be honest, I think it really depends as well on the city. Because we're right now in Kiev, and Kiev is a very modern city. It's a very young city with people living here who are very open-minded. So I think in Kiev, more than in any other part of Ukraine, people are more tolerant towards gay people, gay community. But I still think that we have a lot of people older age who were brought up in Soviet Union. That was the country where they had a lot of restrictions and limitations, and the whole upbringing, the culture, the mentality was completely different than we're having now as young people. For example, my age, I am 23. And those people, they were brought up in a mentality that a man, he needs to be strong, he needs to be masculine, he needs to be protective of his family, and he needs to behave a certain way, and if he behaves in a different way, he's not a real man. This is when in their mentality they've been put that they cannot like cry, for example, or they cannot be emotional, right? Because that is an attribute that only like gay people equals bad people have, for example. And people who were brought up at that age, they still live in Kiev and in Ukraine, and that is the influence that we're having now, that they're not really like welcoming gay people. But I think for the younger generation, it's totally cool.
But what do you think? Why today the government has so many policemen? Even the military came to the.
Yeah, of course, because it's dangerous, because it's very sad, but in Kiev, even in Kiev, you still have episodes of violence towards gay people, and it's really dangerous to like just be walking holding hands, like if two guys are holding hands or like kissing each other on the streets. It is I'm sorry to say that, but it is, because we have like, I believe that people who have the mentality from like Soviet Union, they're very kind of broken people with a lot of insecurities, because their parents didn't love them, you know, and they have this like mentality of hate towards everyone. And those are the people who cannot be kind to anybody else, but like, who is not like that, for example. So for me, those people cannot respect anybody else, you know. For me, those are not real men as like they're supposed to be. You know? For me, like a real man, a real person, a real girl, doesn't matter like which gender, is a person who is like respectful towards the others, no matter the sexual orientation or like race, it doesn't matter what.
When I travel in Japan, you know, most people are very conservative. When I travel to America, most people are very open-minded.
Yeah.
But when I'm in Ukraine, I can see some people think like a Japanese. Some people act like American, very arrogant. I mean, I can't help but think, is it because some people, their parents from Russia, and then some people, the parents from Europe. So that's why Ukraine, their mind, the way you think is totally different.
I think the reason why, like, we're definitely moving towards like more European lifestyle, because you can see as well the fact that we have a gay parade, like a pride parade, is already a big step for us. Even though we have a lot of police around, but it's still a big step because we are still a country who was born right after exiting the Soviet Union, and that was like a country of its own, you know, with their own rules. Like, people were repressed for everything. Like our country, for example, Ukraine, we were repressed for speaking Ukrainian, so everybody had to speak Russian only. And Ukrainian is our native language, right? And we could not speak it, otherwise like people would be imprisoned or like even death penalties. You couldn't like write Ukrainian music. All of that was happening in Soviet Union. So you can see that there was a lot of physical violence and like mental violence against like a lot of people. And it was more like a cult towards the government and towards the leader of the country, and people did not really pay much attention to like family values, like that you have to love your kid or like family members no matter like what happens. And like, because I believe the people who are homophobic, for example, or against any minorities, they just were never like truly loved, and they have their own insecurities and like family issues, and I'm so sad for them because they can't help it, you know. They're just the way they are. And I think that the time when it's going to change in Ukraine is when we will grow up and the older generation will just like go away.
Thank you very much.
That's my boyfriend.